Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another episode of Tattour. Tattour is a series that I created here on my channel to talk about my personal tattoo experience, as well as open the door to a conversation about body modification in general. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different because instead of talking about tattoos, I am going to be talking about piercings. So before I get into my history with piercings and the different types of piercings that I've had, I wanted to touch on the piercings that I currently have still. Right now I have my lobes pierced. I think my second lobe holes are still open, but I don't wear anything in them. On my left ear, I also have my tragus pierced. I have my nostril pierced. I also have my septum pierced, but I usually don't put jewelry in it. And I think that's everything that I have currently. So now let's take a look at my piercing history. I got my first piercing when I was like little. I got my ears pierced and they were weird. I remember they would always hurt all the time. So we ended up letting those close up. And when I got a little bit older, I decided that I wanted to try getting them pierced again. My mom took me to Claire's, we got them pierced, and those ones actually did fine. They're still fine. At some point during my childhood, I think maybe preteen years, I also got my cartilage pierced right here. Actually, that might still be open too. I haven't tried it in a very long time. When I was in high school, I would also take sewing needles and pierce all the way up the sides of my ears. So those I think are mostly closed. They might not be. I don't know. I haven't tried putting anything in them in quite a while. So my first real piercing, where I went to an actual tattoo shop to get it, was my industrial. And I got this when I was 16 years old. It took forever to heal. It hurt to get it, but the healing process was ridiculous. It took a whole year to heal. I ended up having to take it out because I worked at the Fort Worth Zoo and I was only allowed to have 2 piercings per ear. I had just gotten my tragus piercing and I couldn't get the jewelry out, so I had to take out the industrial, and it immediately closed up after 6 years. After my industrial, I got my lip pierced. This was the first piercing I got that wasn't on my ears, and I was so excited. I can still remember how excited I was when my mom said that I could get it pierced. I did let it close up recently. I was just kind of over it. Those were the only piercings that I got when I was under 18. As soon as I turned 18, I went a little bit crazy with piercings because I could finally get whatever I wanted. The first piercing I got when I turned 18 was my nose. Like a few months later, I got my tongue pierced. I don't have my tongue pierced anymore because I broke a couple teeth. I couldn't not mess with it, so I decided to just take it out because I didn't want to damage my mouth. After my tongue, I got my belly button pierced. Then I got dermals put in my hips. I remember I was super scared to get it done. I had heard that it bled a lot and it was like this whole big thing. Because I was so terrified, I made my dad go with me and I bought like sweatpants specifically for this so that they could get all bloody. And my dad went with me and it was not painful at all. Like I think he was more freaked out than I was, and I was the one getting the dermals put in. If you aren't familiar with what dermals are, as opposed to a piercing your ear, the piercing goes all the way through to the other side. So it's like a bar that goes through. A dermal has a base and then it has like a post in it, and then you screw the jewelry in. So it's actually an implant. They implant it into your skin and then you can change the screw on top so that it just looks like a gem that's on you. So I got those put into like where my hip bones are. So one of those got ripped out by a towel when I was drying off after getting out of the shower, and then the other one, because the other one was out, I decided to get removed. So I went back to the same tattoo shop to get that dermal removed, and that was the most painful piercing experience. And I wasn't even getting something pierced, I was just getting it removed. But you have to keep in mind that when the dermal implants are healing, there's like a hole in the middle of the base, like right here, and your flesh kind of grows around it and in it, so it's in there. So to get it removed was just so painful. But I did decide to go ahead and take those dermals, and I had her put them up here on my chest because obviously my first experience was so good, so why not do it again? One of them very quickly rejected and just fell out. But the other side, I did not want to get it removed again because that was so painful. So for years I had one dermal on one side. If you get squeamish about this kind of stuff, you might want to skip ahead, but it was kind of like a loose tooth. The implant was hanging out and it was barely hanging on by my flesh, and I would just kind of twist at it and mess with it until it finally fell out. It took years. It was so uncomfortable. I couldn't wear necklaces. If I wore a seatbelt, I had to like hold it out because I couldn't let it touch me. I don't think I could ever do dermals again. I'm glad that I did them and I had the experience because I was always super interested in them and I thought they were really cool, but it's just not worth it to me. You have to be so careful on what you do so that you don't rip them out. They can reject so easily. It was not a great experience. So after I'd been out of high school for about a year, I ended up getting a job at a tattoo shop, and while I was there, I got my inverted tragus, which is basically like a surface piercing that goes next to your tragus. So instead of going straight through, this is a bar, it's like an eyebrow ring, and it goes into your skin and back out, so both of the balls are on the same side on the surface. I had that for a while, but it got infected and it rejected and it came out, which I was so sad about because I love those piercings. I think they look so cool. Then I got the bottom part of my belly button pierced. I also got my septum pierced for the first time at that tattoo shop, and instead of going all the way through from this side to this side, it went in one side and then down the middle. So that was the second most painful piercing experience I had. It obviously didn't heal right because it wasn't going through the right part of my nose, and it was just all around a bad experience. A few years later, after I moved to Colorado Springs, I found a shop. They pierced my septum correctly. No pain at all, super easy, and it's still pierced. Like I said, I just don't have anything in it right now. And then I went back to that same shop and got my tragus pierced. And I'm telling you, this guy who pierced my septum and my tragus, hands down the best piercer I have ever been to. It was super weird because this shop charged $10 for every piercing, including jewelry, which is insane. If you just heard that, you wouldn't go get a piercing there because most places will charge like $50. This dude charged $10. You walked in, he put it in, and you were out. Like, he was so fast, it didn't hurt. I have never had any problems with either one of these piercings getting infected, rejecting, anything. That was a great experience. There are a few piercings that I wanted but never got. I don't know that I would necessarily ever want to do these piercings now just because I'm kind of over having to deal with piercings. One of those is my nape. I wanted my nape done so bad, which is the back of your neck. It's a surface piercing. It's a bar that goes like under your skin, and then it has two balls that come up, so it's shaped like this. All you would see on the back of your neck were the two balls. So it kind of looked like two dermals next to each other, except there's a bar connecting them underneath your skin. At the time I was looking into it, my little sister was still a baby, and I was spending a lot of time around her, and I didn't want her to end up like pulling it and ripping it out. And now that I think about it, it would get caught on everything, and I don't want to deal with it. The other piercing that I wanted but never got was my tongue web, which is underneath your tongue. I actually went into a shop to get this done, and the piercer told me that I didn't have enough web to get it pierced, so I unfortunately did not get that. I think that if I had gotten that, I would still have it. And to be fair, I think I'd still be interested in getting it if I was able to, but I don't think I can. Now I want to talk a little bit about my piercing apprenticeship. When I was 18, one of the tattoo artists that did a couple of my tattoos left the shop he was working at and started his own shop. And I mentioned to him that I was interested in becoming a piercing apprentice. He had me help him get the shop set up. There was actually a studio apartment attached to the tattoo shop that I lived in. I didn't have to pay rent because I worked there. I don't know, it was weird. That was kind of like my pay. I got paid for the piercings I did and everything, but I didn't make like an hourly rate. I just got to have a place to live. But the building was kind of like a little like strip mall looking thing. They were all connected on the inside. So it was like the tattoo shop, another shop that didn't have a business in it, so it was just all like storage. And then at the end there's a little studio apartment, so that's where I lived. And I actually just today found a picture of me and my cat in that studio apartment, so enjoy this. It was basically like a little hotel room. It was so weird. In the mornings I would just like stumble out of bed and go across into the tattoo shop and clean and everything, and then go back to bed. So my piercing apprenticeship was not complete because the shop ended up closing down and everything. It was like this whole thing. But anyway, I did get to learn how to do some piercings. I got my blood-borne pathogen certification. By the time I was done, I could do belly button piercings, ear piercings, nipple piercings, and nose piercings. Because I didn't finish, like I would never feel comfortable doing like a tongue piercing or a septum piercing or anything like that. I could do belly button piercings because I did so many of those and I had it down. And I really enjoyed it, honestly. I loved piercing. But after the shop closed down, I didn't really pursue pursue it further just because life got crazy. It's definitely something that I would be interested in doing again, like for extra money or something. I wouldn't want to get into it without actually going through a more formal training, because my training wasn't very formal. It was mostly I watched my boss do it and then I would do it. So I wasn't like a certified piercer. If I ever decided to pursue it again, I would definitely want to do a real apprenticeship. I don't know, it feels weird to me that someone can just like walk in and do a piercing. Let me know down in the comments if you have any piercings or your opinion on piercings, any stories that you have. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a beautiful day and I will see you in my next video. Bye!